a relationship between a man and a woman in terms of that lifelong relationship. It could also be with a relationship that we have with our Heavenly Father. Because what I love about this meeting is, although you equip us with all the actual practical tools of dealing with our relationships with our partners, but you also enrich us with the biblical aspect of it and give us the relationship from that point of view. So the song, I'm just trying to lay the context of the song I'm trying to sing. I'm thinking about um, dying daily, having a going back to the original setting of something. I know the pandemic has sort of changed a lot of things, especially in relationships. I'm not quite sure about the statistics, but I know that there's been quite a lot of strain on marriages and relationships in general due to the absence of just being in each other's presence. Not just couples, but also just friendships and all that. So this song talks about going back to how things were when we first began. So this might be, I'm dedicating this to maybe people that have been in the relationship with someone on a longer term than others. And as humans, we tend to drop our guard as the relationship gets longer, and we forget all those nice gestures that we had right at the start. So this song really speaks to the fact, really speaks to those good things that we used to do when we just first fell in love with someone, first met someone, and we were mesmerized by every single thing. They couldn't say anything wrong. They couldn't dress in any way, even when they were not by normal standards in the right in the right way. We overlooked that because there was a magic, there was a glow. So this song really just speaks to going back to the way things were when you first met someone you were crazy about. So all right, I'll just set it up and get going. No one makes me feel the way you do inside. And I don't know what I'd do without you, girl. There's no life if I die. I hope to find you in another life, so we can fall again and be the way we were when we first began. Like the first time I ever saw you smile. I want this feeling again. Be the way we were when we first began. So we got something special. Let's hold on and don't let go. And I'll never find another like you. You and this I know. 'Cause if I die, I hope to find you in another life, so we can fall again and be the way we were when we first began. Like the first time I ever saw you smile. I want this feeling again and be the way we were when we first began. When we first began. When we first began. When we first began. And if I die, I hope to find you in another life, so we can fall and be the way we were when we first began. Like the first time I ever saw you smile. I want this feeling again. And be the way we were when we first began. Thank you. Merry Christmas. Amen.
Amen.
Man.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lizanzi. And that's a lovely song. And thank you for reminding us we need to have a reference of how we felt when we first met. So actually, part of the request the team had this time is that after this session, please take time as a couple. I know there are various restrictions everywhere, but make a candlelit dinner for your spouse, or you take her out, or you take her. In the UK, most restaurants are closed, but just make an effort to have a romantic evening, especially being that this is the last session of the year, and we just thank God that God has brought us this far. We know we've lost people, we've lost friends, just as a thank you to God, and also as a thank you that God has kept that love going in your marriage. So thank you so much. Again, I welcome everybody who has joined. We have people so far from Namibia, Rwanda, Australia, Qatar, Wales, US. Thank you. Somebody's joining us from Spain. Thank you so much. I hope you're going to be blessed. I'm going to invite Pastor Sam Davis shortly to welcome the guest speakers. We have a message about love confusion. So I believe after this session, we are not going to be confused. I know, yeah, I know Dr. Alonzo and Mrs. Alonzo will just make us have bless us with their presentation. Again, just as a reminder, please remind yourself to mute yourselves. If you see somebody on the group, you want to chat with them, you can use the chat forum on the side. Reach out to them and say hello. I've seen that's already happening. If you have any questions in the course of the presentation, please go ahead and just put your questions there, and then we will pick the questions. My colleague Nkulu Leko will lead the question and answer at the end, and therefore we'll pick the questions and we'll have those addressed at the end. And lastly, because we're in the Christmas season, I wanted to share with you something about Santa's workers. I know most of us are Adventists, but I thought this will bring you a bit of light. So why was there low production in Santa's factory? Anybody there? Who helped Santa? They're those little people called elves. So I'll save you the agony, and I'll tell you it's because the elves were elf isolating. So on that note, I welcome Pastor Sam Davis to come and welcome the guest speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all of you for making it for this evening's program. Also, it gives me pleasure to take the opportunity to welcome the Smiths. Drs. June and Alonzo Smith have been perhaps one of our most favored speakers. And I can also say that we can proudly claim that we are their favorites. And I know they agree to this. Now, the Smiths are professional counselors who have served in the greater New York area and also around the globe for more than 20 years. I can say that in the South England Conference, we see them as one of us. They have been helping individuals and families to heal from their personal and emotional wounds. Now, for us, the MEF, we have been beneficiaries of their ministry over the years. I suppose The first time we had them dates back to about 18 or 17 years ago. I remember vividly. Now, the Smiths have been married for more than 30 years, and they are proud parents of one daughter, a son-in-law, and a 3-year-old grandson. I mean, they will correct me if the boy is still 3 or a bit older. Now, but just a few words about their individual accomplishments. Dr. Alonzo Smith, can you hear me? Okay. Dr. Alonzo Smith is a ministerial.
Yeah, you can hold that one, okay? Where I put the gifts out in the room?
Yeah, he is an international evangelist and an adjunct professor at Andrews University. Also a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's also got credentials as a licensed mental health counselor and psychotherapist. Some of his gifts include being a publisher. I mean, he's published 5 books and has conducted family seminars around the world. Now, it would be good to also mention the credentials of Dr. June Smith, June Ann Smith. She is professor at Long Island University in the Department of Counseling. Dr. June is a celebrated teacher. In 2005, she received the David Newton Award for Teacher of Excellence. But also she is a licensed clinical social worker, a marriage and family therapist, and just like her husband, a mental health counselor and a nationally certified counselor and psychotherapist. She is also a sought-after presenter at many family retreats and camp meetings. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Drs. June and Alonzo Smith.
Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you so much. It is a joy and a privilege to reconnect with God's people. So many of you are my longtime friends, and I will meet and make some more. We will meet and make some more new friends today, but we just want to affirm you and pray God's richest blessings upon the couples. And we just want to thank God for you. Your family life leadership in this area is doing a fantastic job. And my good friends who have the Santiagos and the Petersons and my good friend Mbui, Michael, good to see you both and good to see you all. God bless you. Honey, say hi to your friends.
Yes, good morning. Happy Sabbath from New York. We are surrounded with snow. We got 8 inches on Friday, was it?
Thursday.
On Thursday. So we're under the weather. But thank God the Son of Christ is bright in our hearts and we're here to celebrate the Sabbath with you. We look forward to a good discussion and we trust that something we say will strengthen your families and we'll want you to love Jesus more. Thank you for having us.
We are very glad to be a part of this August program, and we just want you to enjoy what we're going to share with you. Love's confusion. You know, a lot of people talk about love these days, honey, and some people understand love, but some people are confused. Would you agree with me on that?
It is probably one of the most confusing emotions. We often misinterpret behaviors. And so sometimes people think that what they're doing is really demonstrating their love, and sometimes it sends the wrong message. But yes, there are lots of people that experience true love.
So we'll agree that love is complex. Love is complex. A mix of emotions, behaviors, and beliefs associated with strong feelings of affection, protectiveness, warmth, and respect for the other person. Why would one include respect for the other person in a definition of love?
Because love expects respect, and I would almost say demands respect. So when one is treated with care and with kindness and with compassion, it makes you feel good. So you feel respected, and you open yourself, you get transparent, you get vulnerable, and it's all a part of that complex mix of emotions.
But is this respect just for a period of time, or is it?
No, because love is not temporary. Love is everlasting. Love is permanent. So when you love somebody, as long as you are, you know, treated well, and you're honoring the code of conduct that you owe each other, and by God's principles, then you will nurture the emotions that you call love. So you
Okay.
should continue to respect and love each other, treat each other well throughout your relationship. It's not a temporary thing.
Okay, I see that our sharing, they're not seeing the screen that we're sharing. Let me try again. Share screen. Let me just try, because they're not seeing this. I just picked
No,
it.
we are seeing the screen, sir. We are seeing the screen.
You're seeing when I move it as well?
Yeah, we're seeing it now. That's fine now.
Okay, yeah. Now okay. So they say love is a force of nature. However much we may want to, we cannot command, demand, or take away love. Now, I understand the command and the demand that we cannot, but how about take away love? Can't I take away your love from me?
Well, as we say, yes, you can kill my love for you, but the fact that love is a force of nature means that I can love again. So love is always there.
But I think what the author is saying here is that no matter what I do, I can't take it away. You have to make that decision that you will stop loving.
Yes, true. So once you commit yourself to engage someone in your intimate space and to decide to love them, because it is a decision you make, you can also take away that decision because the contract is broken. So I love you because you love me, and you respect me, and you regard me.
And there are individuals who love someone even though the person does not reciprocate. And that's why we say love is confusing, because sometimes you wonder, how on earth could this person keep loving this individual when the individual act this way or behave this way?
Because it's a decision that people make. So yes, there are some neurotransmitters that are involved that triggers your emotions, but people make a cognitive conscious decision to choose to stay in love. And even when they sometimes are mistreated, they still keep that commitment.
So we can invite love by what we do, what we say, how we act, but we cannot dictate how and when or even where love expresses itself.
Yes, but we can negotiate it.
Okay.
So somebody might be demonstrating their love in a way that you don't really appreciate, but to them, that's how they're showing their love. So you can explain to your intimate partner that, look, I know you mean well, but when you do this, I'm annoyed. So maybe if you try it this way, so you can both negotiate what's agreeable to both of you, and you should be open enough to receive that.
Is it possible that you can love somebody you didn't like? You find yourself loving someone?
Yes. Sometimes people repulse you because of their arrogance or because of whatever, and you never imagine you could fall for that person, and for some reason you get attracted at some other level. You can choose to fall in love.
Do you think, I was just going to ask you, do you think there are couples, maybe even some listening to us, that they didn't like each other at first, or one person didn't like the other, but by constant persistence or over time, they just grow in love and it worked out fine?
Yes, because we don't believe in love at first sight. So when you see somebody, you may be repelled by that person, but when you get to know them closer, the things that you resisted at first no longer matters.
But honey, isn't your love at first sight also? Because the first time I saw you, The first time you see me, you didn't love me. Talk to me now. Don't let these people hear. But tell me, the first time you saw me on campus, honey.
I was attracted to you, but I didn't love you. I didn't know you.
You
I didn't
hated
know.
me?
No, but it's not love.
Okay,
Hate is not the
okay.
opposite of love.
Just want to make sure.
So yeah,
she loved me a year from now. She loved me. Love at first sight. Anyway, but the point we're making is that it is possible that we could see someone we don't like, and later on we grow to love the person.
Yes, of course.
And the opposite is also true.
Right.
That we can start loving the person, and after a time, because of behavior, attitude, etc., we can start not loving the person. Indeed, love is confusing.
It is. And that's why, unfortunately, a large number of people who fall in love also fall out of love.
No, it is said that love does not come with conditions, stipulations, agenda, or codes. In other words, am I to understand that if I'm going to love you, I'm going to love you?
Yes, love, when you make a decision to love, you have to take the package. So you just can't love the person when they're being nice to you. That's why we say at the altar, for better or for worse. Now, of course, there are limits to that worse, but it's not unconditional.
Okay, so in other words, when I say I do, and after I make that decision, you have to find a way of living with me and making it work, as long as my ways are not an aberration, as it were. It's not abusive. It's not violating the laws of God and so forth. But the nuances about me and the nuances about you is all part of the package of love. And sometimes, honey, I hear individuals say, I can't stand his ways, I can't stand this way, and so I'm out, I want to out. That's not really how love works.
Right, because love is something that grows. So at first, when you fall in love, as we call it, it is fall in an attraction for this person. You more likely have established a criteria for the person you want to journey your life with, and this person may have checked all the boxes, but it doesn't mean that you're in love with the person. You are deeply attracted to the person, because you really may not know a lot about this person when you're making this decision. So it is irrational to say you're just so in love, but you feel deeply connected and bonded with this person, and they've met all the other criteria that you've established, morally, spiritually, etc. And so you're making a decision to start this journey. But as you go along the journey, you might find that there are some character flaws that even when you're willing to accept their struggles, you just can't seem to get to, live together, because this person is violating you in so many ways.
Okay. So just like the sun, love radiates independently of our fears and desires. Love is a strong phenomenon. It is something that God has given us. It is indeed a force of nature, but it does not allow or give way to destructive or abusive behavior.
Absolutely. So when you are in love, whether it is an intimate relationship or it is a relationship with parent, child, or with any other construct that warrants love, it should not be painful. It should not be hurtful. The very Bible says it. We have to respect the fact that love is something that is nurturing and fulfilling and enhancing. It's life-giving. It's not something that destroys you and diminishes you.
So it speaks out for justice and protects anyone that is being harmed. It allows room for grief or pain to be expressed and released.
But there's a distinction between grief and pain. So if I'm in grief for whatever my issues are, or in pain over some issue I'm having, then my lover can accommodate that and help me along with it, but should not be the source of my pain and my grief. You see the difference?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I'm hearing you saying, but you just said there's a distinction between grief and pain. Or do you mean there's a distinction between my working with you in your grief and pain, but I'm not to be the cause of your
right.
grief
So
and pain?
Grief and pain they are facts of life. Okay. We are going to have hurtful and painful experiences as we're journeying, but you should not be the source of my pain. So if you're causing me grief, then there's something wrong with our love.
But honey, let me ask you this question. That's true. But let me ask you this question. It says love does not threaten to withhold itself if it doesn't get what it wants. But it seems to me it's a fair human phenomena that if I don't get what I want, then I hold back.
Because that would be selfish. So you cannot withdraw your not love, but the consequences of your love. So for example, if you were in a marriage and if you are supposed to pay the mortgage and I'm upsetting you for some reason, you just can't not pay the mortgage this month.
Still have to pay.
So you
work
have
through
to
the issue.
continue to do what you do, even when you're a little annoyed or frustrated. So love is selfless. It's not all about you. It has to be about both of you.
Okay. So we're talking about love, and most times when people hear the word love, especially for when they say for women or for men, sex is the first thing that comes to their mind. That would be,
I think it's more so for men.
okay.
I mean,
Men,
the research suggests that, right?
yeah. We're not disputing it. We don't have a problem with the research either. We're fine. We're okay with it. But when most people talk about having sex, they are usually referring to penetrative sex. Now, is this the only type of sex that one can experience?
Well, sex is a term that illustrates intimacy, and so yes, most people think that sex means that you've got to copulate and penetrate each other, as sex is often displayed. But to be sexual is not only about intercourse.
But it seems to me that what they should define here when they are asking the question, what is sex? Because when they're saying things like kissing, touching, rubbing, and stroking are all acts of sex, that's more so for the woman. That's not for the man.
Well, I can't say what is for the man, but I can also say.
Well, I will speak for the men. Gentlemen, I hope you're raising a hand and say, no, for the man, if it hasn't
but
reached,
they can be trained, let's say that.
Yeah, but
they can be trained. So
it's not a lack of training.
So yes, it is physical, I understand. And I know that once a man touches a woman, his wife, that he gets ignited and he's ready to go. But at the same time, you can calm him down and help him to enjoy the moment. So it doesn't have to just bam slam. So you teach them how to regulate the emotion, so they can.
We agree with that, and we're on the same page.
Experience.
Yeah, all we're saying is that for the lady, if she experienced kissing, for her, she may describe that as sex. Touching, rubbing,
sexual,
stroking.
not necessarily.
Yeah.
But in other words, love making.
But that's love making for the lady. For the man, love making is one thing, and I will leave it at that.
I wouldn't say all men, but
no, I didn't say all. I say majority of all of the men that are online here. Why do men fall asleep?
Is that because they're black men?
No, it's because they're sexual beings, and that's how God made them. God made them to be sexually expressive, and in order for them to be sexually expressive, they have to be sexually
involved. They can touch and caress and hug and all of that too.
So why do men fall asleep after sex? If they do, I mean, we're assuming no nocturnal. We're not in it, nocturnal.
Well, they could fall asleep in the day too after sex.
Well, yeah, but mostly nights. So why?
Well, sex is exhausting. Physically, intimacy is exhausting. You put out a lot of energy, so they're usually tired, and there are also hormones that are released that has that impact on the brain that allows them to.
Let's talk about some of those hormones that you mentioned there. Some of those biochemistry.
Right. So, like we say, serotonin, oxytocin, vasopressin, and all these what is that? Prolactin. These are hormones that are pleasure enhancing hormones, and when you get stimulated, they get excited and they release and open up. But they're also the hormones that relaxes you and make you want to fall asleep. So it is.
Makes sense, gentlemen. Don't beat up on yourself if you fall asleep afterwards. It's biological. It's it's okay, and ladies understand it. It's love.
But the ladies feel sleepy too. It's not just men.
Yeah, most times they don't. But anyway, so does sex mean love? If you don't have, how can you not have sex with me and say you love me? Does sex mean love?
No, it does not. Sex can be just an act. And sometimes some women feel like they're just a sex object. So they're an object to be for them to, for their spouses to get release, but they really don't feel connected and bonded, unfortunately. And that's not what true love or sex in true love is designed for. Sex in true love is a culmination of an ecstasy that you experience when you think about the person that God has given you as a gift. So you're in return experiencing the joy of copulating with each other, and there's nothing like it. So it is not just, you know.
So let me say here, honey, that when people go out and have an affair and they're feeling this sensation, this desire to go, and it's like, is it love they're experiencing, or is it infatuation?
It is infatuation.
I'm talking married people now.
Yes,
married people.
Or anyone who is not committed in a relationship, because let's face it, love is not just something that is a temporary thing. So you get attracted to a person, which is a normal human phenomenon, and you can get attracted to anybody you choose to. But if you're truly committing to a love relationship, then a lot of thinking goes into that. And if you just met somebody and decide to have sex with the person, really, how much, mental process occurs?
In other words, what we're saying is a lot of people confuse infatuation with love. And so when they go out and they have an affair, or if they're not married and they're having these kind of relationship, and they say, I love the person, I love them to death. But sometimes
they're excited.
Because true love, honey, mature love is not expressed in sexual act only.
Right.
As a matter of fact, for you to know you love the person, you have to start living with the person and understanding the ins and outs of all the things that you have to do. Then you really realize, what true love is, a principle.
And as we said, it is a principle. So you have to, every time you get attracted to somebody and you're tempted to be stimulated by this person sexually, you have to pause and say, what am I doing? I have a family, or I have a wife, or I have a husband, and I cannot allow this to happen because I am in a committed relationship. Now, this person might be very exciting and might even be more exciting than your spouse. But the fact is, you have a commitment. The principle is violated. So as a Christian person and as a moral person, you have to check yourself and regulate yourself and your emotions and find a way to turn around, because a one-night experience or a whatever number of days experience is not worth,
even if it's months or years, it's still not worth it.
Breaking the principle.
As you say that, honey, and I'm sure you have had the experience also, during the COVID lockdown and this COVID crisis, starting back in March, February, March, up to this point, I have received more cases of infidelity in this 9-month period than I have received in any other period of my professional career as a therapist.
Lots of marriages have gone underwater. Lots of couples are, for the first time, just frustrated because sometimes, for some reason, the job was almost a distraction. So now that they have to work from home and they are together all the time, they just are getting on each other's nerves because they've not been able to work through some of their issues. And so, yes, there's been a lot of frustration and anxiety and issues created. Now, the infidelity that occurs, I think I don't know why that is happening, because they're supposed to be socially distant. So, but
at a time when they're supposed to be socially,
I think because of the anxiety, they find ways of getting.
I think that's a study we'll have to do. Maybe one day write an article on the research findings on it. But I don't know why is this. We understand there's a lot of physical abuse and verbal abuse and marital disruption. We understand all of that because of the COVID confinement. And as you said, they are now living with each other, not living with the job, as it were. And maybe that's the reason also why, I
think some financial pressure from loss of jobs and stuff may have contributed to some of the emotional upset that people are experiencing.
But the principle of love is not necessarily what you take from love. It's what you give to love. And that's important, because most times people What am I getting? What am I getting? Maybe the question should be, what am I giving? Because the more you see how much you're giving, sometimes it makes a difference.
So love is a cycle and it's a circle, and what you give tends to come back to you. And people sometimes are stuck in what they get, and unfortunately, they sometimes don't get much. But regardless of what you get, you can train your lover how to give and how to be, because some people think that going out to work and taking care of the bills is what they ought to be doing, and that's enough love, and they have nothing more to give. But sometimes that's not what the other spouse needs. They just need a hug, or they need somebody to sit and listen to them, or work with them in some way, you know, on making decisions, etc., etc. So yeah, there's a lot that is involved.
The period getting to know each other, and after you get married, that first initial period is called the honeymoon period, honeymoon love. And that's when the friends in it, and goes on. Now, what happens in relationship is that people generally think when they're dreaming of marriage and dreaming to get married, and they get married and they're in a honeymoon period, they tend to think that that's how the relationship will last, the Cinderella syndrome.
And there's no reason why it can't last that way, but the intensity of it dissipates over time.
There's several reasons why it can't.
Right. Well, yeah, but I mean, the connection and the bond should grow stronger.
Should always be there
as time progresses.
Yes.
So you don't have to lose the edge, but the intensity of that honeymoon period is what tends to wane over time. But when you are truly committed to your relationship, you make an effort and you're intentional about keeping your relationship as a primary focus in everything that you do.
And so during this time, the focus is on both of you, and rightly so. You know, you just got married, you just know each other in this intimate way, and da. So it's okay. It's good to describe it as the honeymoon period. But after time, you're going to realize that that honeymoon period is not going to stay forever. It's part of love, but it can't stay, because guess what? There are things that you have to move on.
So you're growing and changing, and as you're evolving into a different person,
you have work to do.
You have bills to pay. you have children. Oh my goodness, when children come into the picture, they take away 90% or more of your time and attention.
And so there are conflicts now.
And there are conflicts over simple things sometimes, but yes, disagreements come in.
Because a lot of times when they were dating, and there were conflictual issues, they leave it. You know, we don't want to.
Or they saw red flags and they did nothing about it. And now that they're together and they're in a permanent relationship, it all becomes brighter.
So what we are saying is that the intensity and the feeling that goes on during the honeymoon stage change to some extent, because after that, it's not just the two of you now, but there are other variables that come in. Good relationships, they know how to navigate that and remain firm and stay together. Others are still yearning for honeymoon, and not understanding that, hey, you have to deal with life as it goes on, and you can make your relationship stronger and better, even though you're navigating these different things. So how can we get back to the honeymoon? Some people will ask. How can things be as it used to be, how we remember it? Is that what they should be aiming for, to get back to, or should they be looking forward?
Well, as I said, we're growing and we're changing. So you have to accommodate these and adapt to these changes as they're occurring. And so now when you were just both of you together, you could have spent maybe a lot of more time, quality time. But now that you have a baby or have children, you probably don't have that quality time. So now you have to get involved in the process.
Your position at work could change, and it demands more of your time.
Right.
There's so many variables that could come in.
So both of you now have to navigate and negotiate how you're going to divide the labor and what you're expecting from this other partner, and be willing to share. Sometimes you have to pick up the pieces or the tabs for the other because they're so distracted by what the demands are on their plate. So both of you, it's a complementary relationship. You can't measure, okay, I'm giving 90% and he's only giving 10. He might only be able to give 10 because these are the factors. But because it is for the interest of the couple or the family, you work together to support it until things get evened out.
Exactly. And here's some of the frustrating questions now that individuals who are feeling that they're not in a love relationship as they used to do. Why don't I feel as close as I used to? Why am I not getting my emotional and other needs met like I used to? And the starting point of happiness is abandoning love that takes and learn how wonderful it is to give. And in this period of so-called honeymoon and the frustration that comes afterwards, the reason why people are asking these frustrating questions is that they are not making the transition in their life. They're not understanding that the older you grow, things change. You change, your spouse change, there are different things. And individuals who are always taking, are not going to make the adjustment as those who are willing to give.
Or sometimes too, they're unrealistic expectations. Sometimes they had a list of things that you were expecting out of your marriage or out of your spouse. And now that you are married, you realize this person is not capable of delivering those things. So you might have to abandon that list and play with the cards or work with the cards that are on your plate and work together to improve the things that you can and support each other in your strides. You both made a conscious decision to pick each other and to stay married or get married. So now that you're married, this is what it is. Work together, love each other, nurture each other. And like any plant that is wilting, once it gets the right elements, it will grow.
You know, you said something early on that I just want to piggyback on, because we're talking about people change, things change. We're helping our couples to understand why the intensity of emotional love changes after the honeymoon period. And we're saying it's not that you have grown out of love, and it's not that you stop loving each other. It's a situation that you're not understanding the changes that are taking place, is dynamic of the changes. And one of those variables, honey, you mentioned a little, is that they overlook or ignore red flags and things that either they should have addressed before they get married or not get married because of them. They overlook it, thinking that once I'm married, I'll be able to deal with it. And now they're realizing it's not so easy to deal with.
Right. And no one is perfect. So yes, you may have seen some traits that you didn't particularly like, but you think with time, this person will get better as you try to be a better influence. And then you got married and realized this person is ignoring anything that you're trying to do to give them help or to create insight. So now you have a problem. And once the problem is affecting the marriage, both of you have to take responsibility to address it. So you can't get to a point where you say, well, that's your problem, you deal with it. Mm-hmm. No, if it's a problem generated by you that is affecting us, then it becomes our problem. So we both have to be willing to address it. If not, after a while, the relationship is going to fall apart.
Self-destructive behaviors set in now. Mm-hmm. Rather than adapting to the situation you're in, taking responsibility for your behavior, your action, then now self-destructive behavior, lies, cover up, and they become reclusive, aggressive, and unfaithful. Unfortunately, but it is so sad. Love is confusing.
Because after the honeymoon, the next phase is what we call the power struggle. So
we're going to talk about that. Go ahead.
Individuals now begin to create their own role and to figure out, look, I'm going to set the precedent here because I don't want this to continue. Mm-hmm. And so they, fight for supremacy, and that becomes a whole nother
hopeless battle, as you say. Couples get caught up in this almost hopeless battle of trying to prolong the honeymoon period. Forget that, it's not happening. Or they begin, as you rightly say, the power struggle, physical and emotional abuse, unfaithfulness, money problems.
And yet those things, the power struggle is a natural phenomenon, but it doesn't have to result in physical and emotional abuse. If you understand
or breaking the
breaking the relationship, you just need to understand that it's a natural phenomena. So what you do is you negotiate. You talk about what you are likely to want as a precedent in this relationship, what you're willing to agree to, what you're willing not to put up with, and you work it out like you do in any other relationship. If you go to your job and there's something, a policy that is affecting you, you go into your boss and you say, look, this is a problem. Can we talk about how we might modify it? And you do that in your marriage just as well.
So what we're saying, instead of trying to prolong the honeymoon period, which is a hopeless battle, you change to the reality of where you are now, adjust your situation. Love is a mature process and it grows. It may sound funny, but the love I have for Honey now is totally different than the love I have for her when I just met her 1, 2, 3 years into marriage. This one is stronger. It is not that can't wait to see her.
You still can't wait to see me.
I know, but I'm going to explain it even better than that. In those days, no, every minute, every second. But now, the day can go and I know you are there and you know I am there, and at the appropriate time we meet again, and that bonding is strong and secure. So even though you will text me or call me during the day, and I will do that, I must confess, you do it more than I do, but we do it.
Because you're more busy, right?
You know that. I didn't want to say it in public, but anyhow, the point I'm making is we don't neglect each other and wait until the end of the day. We still touch bases with each other. But the point we're making is that not connecting in the day does not diminish our connection when we get together in the evening.
Nor in our minds emotionally and psychologically. Because
Exactly.
what happens is now you feel secure, and you don't think those things don't worry you anymore. Is he there? Is he going to call me? Why didn't he call? You just know that he's at work, he's doing what he has to do, and you allow it, or vice versa. And so you don't worry about it. So yes, you develop a real mature way of assessing the situation.
You said something, Honey, that is important here. You feel secure. A number of times, however, people don't feel secure in their relationship. They feel something is going on.
So they stalk each other.
Yeah, technically and literally so. And sometimes there's reason for it, grounds for it, unfortunately, but that is so. Right. So we're saying, folks, don't get caught up in this recursive pattern. You see, the woman doesn't see the man as attractive or affectionate as he used to be to her, because sometimes she feels he's giving that attention to someone else. And the man doesn't feel sexually satisfied as he used to, because the relationship is looking at what was rather than making today the best of today.
Yeah, because life happens and things change, as you said. And sometimes, people get distracted by work pressure and by everything else. And sometimes after having children, you really don't want to be touched as often. When I say touched, I mean, and so you're like, okay, not tonight or whatever. And the person might take it as rejection rather than understanding.
Well, make it tonight. Better tonight than not tomorrow night. Trying to convince a man to feel some way or act some way he used to or you want him to is not going to work very well. It may not work because you can't logically make someone feel an emotion. Therefore, it can backfire on you. He may see you as needy or nagging and pulls away more. The same thing is for the woman.
So unfortunately, what you're feeling, you try to project it onto the other person and blame the person for your feelings. But the frank truth is, nobody is responsible for what you're feeling. So if you're feeling neglected, that's not your spouse's fault. You may be neglected, but you don't have to feel neglected. You go to your husband and find out, I noticed you have not been paying me much attention. What's going on? Clarify it, process it, talk about it, but don't just sulk and assume there's a problem.
The problem is, honey, the problem is when there's a communication block, because the spouse may go to the other and try to create it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't have nothing to say. Yeah, I have nothing to say. And we withdraw. And especially if there's a guilty conscience, it makes it worse.
If there's a kink, if there is a block in the stream, you have to talk about it. You're in a marriage. This is not, a friendship that is just temporary. So once your spouse signals that they're feeling, because again, the person is responsible for their own feeling, what you're doing might be triggering those feelings. So if they're communicating to you that they're having some physical response that is not comfortable, then listen to it, because your interest is to make sure your spouse is secure. And if they're telling you that they have some concerns, who else can they talk to, or should they be talking to except you?
Trying to convince a woman that she needs to be more sexually given to you can be hopeless. Sexual satisfaction is an important part of a woman's overall health and well-being. However, when problems arise, it is difficult for her to feel sexually giving. It is therefore vital to discover what is causing her to have her libido button out. When a woman shuts down sexually, she's going into protective mode.
In other words, women are more emotionally, sexually responsive when they're emotionally secured. So once they have some innate thought that there is a problem in the relationship and the spouse is distracted, then they shut down. And the spouse might want to use sex as a way to show that I care about you, but the woman rejects it because she thinks this is only an act.
Mm-hmm.
You're not respectful up to me, you're not treating me nicely, you're having an affair, or whatever they perceive. Even if it might be incorrect, they don't want to be touched physically if their brain isn't telling them that they're in a secure relationship.
So what we want to move into now in our final part of our presentation is correcting the problem. We talk about the distractions in relationship. We talk about misunderstanding the honeymoon period and trying to prolonging that relationship, and what could affect you in your relationship, the dynamics of it, and all of those things. How do we correct all of that, correcting the problem? So how can a spouse connect with the person they love and move from honeymoon to lover moon instead of honeymoon to power struggle? Because that's what people move from honeymoon to power struggle, most people. But we want you to move from honeymoon to lover moon, as it were, a loving dynamic relationship. So we start out by saying bonding. And when we talk about bonding, we're saying pay attention to the important aspect of your relationship. Balancing work with home, balancing church with home, spending quality time. Talk to us there.
So that your relationship is a primary focus. It is not a sideline. It's not a part-time.
Mm-hmm.
Your relationship with your spouse is like your relationship with Christ. I mean, he literally says that. The marriage bond is like his bond with us. So we're not on part-time relationship with Christ. He is integrated in everything we do. So your relationship should be a part of your being. You care about this person. Their interest is your primary focus, and everything you do should be enhancing their growth. So you must take time to bond together, effectively communicate, plan together, know where you're going, and journey in the same direction.
So the first way of correcting the problem is bonding, getting back together. Too many relationships are distant relationships. You're in the same room, but you're distant. And sometimes in the same house, but distance. Not in the same house, but not in the same room. And sometimes sleeping in the same bed, but distant. Bonding is important. Bonding is crucial. From personal experience, I have a wife who bonds with me. Honey, do I bond with you, by the way?
You do.
Okay, because I don't want to be, can we say excuse? And folks, could you turn to something else? We're going to do a little bonding, and then we'll come back. Okay. Peterson, play some music there. Okay, so the first thing is bonding. The second one, and this is a big one now, communicating. Oh, my Father, this is the killer for relationships. People are
I think when marriages break down, most times people just shut up. They just stop talk. because sometimes I think they get exhausted because the method that they have been using to communicate is not effective. So they figure, why even say it anymore? So they just shut down. And once that happens, they withdraw. And then that leads to sometimes permanent separation. So it's a very...
Let's quickly review these 3 processes that we have discussed with you sometime in the past: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. And we say the person who is auditory is?
A person who listens through their auditory process.
So they have to hear it.
So if you don't tell them what you're saying, you can be showing them all you care,
but they have to hear you saying, I love you.
Right.
I like this dinner. I love this one. You have to
verbalize it.
Okay. And the visual now is different, the opposite almost.
Right. They're the person who may not say I love you, but they will bring you gifts and they will do things to demonstrate.
They want that to be done to them. They visual, they have to see it.
That in return, because that's their love language. They do it through audit.
And it's kinesthetic now.
And the kinesthetic is somebody who is affectionate and touchy-feely, and they want caresses and they want.
So, honey,
physical.
I'm the only one you can pick. Am I auditory, visual, or kinesthetic?
You're
only one you can pick.
You're all 3, but you're more kinesthetic.
No, I don't like touch. You know I don't like touch.
Really?
Yes. Folks, I don't like to touch. I'm a distant man. Social distancing, I love practice social distancing.
Doesn't happen, people.
Only don't fool the people, and you know it happens. Accentuate the positive in your communication, because a lot of times we get the negative communication.
Right. So most people spend a lot of time telling the person what they're not doing well, but they rarely say what they do well. So put more emphasis on the things that your spouse does well and talk about the things that needs to change, but don't do it in a diminishing way. So you can say, honey, you know, I'd like you to start doing, putting less sugar in this juice or salt in the food, or, you know, but don't say, oh, this food is disgusting, I can't eat it. You know, just identify.
The way you say it, just the way you
say
it.
Communicate it.
And also in communication, remember, listening is an active part of communication, a very powerful part of communication. Avoid inappropriate affect or sarcasm. In other words, the negative, folks, doesn't strengthen the relationship. It tears it apart. Take the negative out, take the sarcasm out, and you'll find that the relationship strengthens.
So you say things with your eyes or your body language, you know, you're just sarcastic and the person just gets turned off.
So create a dialogue, a positive dialogue in your communication. So bonding and communication are 2 to 3.
And honey, dialogue is the operative word. So it's not a monologue.
Dialogue.
So you're not just talking down to the person. You're having a conversation about an issue that both of you, and when you're discussing the issue, stay with the issue. Don't describe the person. So you don't say you're disgusting or you're frustrated. You say, when you do this, it frustrates me. Or when you don't do this, I feel sad. So use I messages and talk about the issue. Don't diminish the person.
So the 3rd one, we say bonding, we say communication. The 3rd one is be honest. Let your word be your bond. And that's important. Turn away from wrongdoing. Admit your fault, mistakes, or negligence. Have an open policy. Be factual and truthful.
And be willing to say, I am sorry.
Yes.
When you err, you say, I am sorry. That is what Jesus asks of us, and that's what our spouses should expect. So don't just assume because you had sex and the person should know you're sorry. No, you need to acknowledge your fault and say, because when you verbally say, I'm sorry, you're affirming and assuring the person that you're making a conscious decision to turn away from that behavior. But if you just make up, then the person is left thinking, is he really remorseful or will it happen again?
So you will find less confusion in love when you bond together, when you communicate accurately, when you're honest with each other. And yes, of course.
And honey, honesty involves transparency. So you can be honest in that you said the truth, but you didn't say everything. So there should be no secrets that you're holding from your spouse that is significant, that if she finds out or he finds out, would destroy the relationship.
Yeah. Okay. So the 4th one is show affection. How to remove love confusion. Bond well, communicate well, and then you should be honest. Bring honesty to the relationship. And yes, to remove love's confusion, show affection. We're talking about affection is not only having sex, it's pamper your spouse with love and care. It is giving adequate hugs and kisses. It is practice chivalry, the little things that make lives happy. Pay attention to when the person is sick, when there's a sad news in the family, when there's a loss, when there's a frustration. You know, folks, love, real love manifests itself not in emotional togetherness and emotional sexual bonding. Love, the true love, shows in the little things you do for each other, the little laughter, the little care, the little hugs, the little play, the little, you know, sometimes we make marriage too serious. It's too serious. It's just
A military style.
a military, yeah. It's like, come off the battlefield with your marriage. Come off the battlefield with your marriage and go in the playground. Move from the battleground to the playground with your relationship. Play. Why do we don't want to play? Play. And you know, let relationship grow and affect and be effective.
And also I'd like to say that part of our responsibility is to demonstrate how Christian homes function well. And if we have children, we're being role models for them. So when they leave our homes, they're going to be just what their fathers were or just what their mothers were. So if we don't demonstrate appropriately, then we perpetuate these negative patterns and destructive cycle. It becomes a destructive cycle. So for those reasons, in addition to having a happy home, we want to make sure we do it right.
To remove love's confusion, not only must we show affection, but we must practice romance. You know, make romance a habit, not just a nocturnal act. A lot of times the reason why we have so many affairs is that couples are not romantic towards each other. They're not showing each other that they are sexually desirable and that they desire each other. Use your eyes, your tongue, your hands to express sexual desire. Listen, folks, you are married, you're in this thing. God invented sex. That's why we can talk about sex on the Sabbath, because it is God who gave us. Sometimes we act as if we discovered this thing and we discovered the sexual organ and we decide how it must be used. No. God made you that way. And God is the one that gave us the sexual desire and the sexual drive. And we must use it in a beautiful family marital relationship and use it well. Don't be afraid. Practice handwriting. You know, when you're in your bed and you're talking to each other, give your hand to your spouse and tell your spouse, put my hand where you would like me to have it. Not on my head. No, it won't be on my head. Don't worry yourself. No, my head is okay. I already combed my hair. I don't need to comb it again. Oh, she's a troublemaker, folks. She's a troublemaker, but later on she'll pay for it. Don't worry yourself about that. We're gonna practice. We're gonna practice romance a little later, and we don't have to wait until the sunset. We're not going into a theological discussion with you all now, you know. But the Lord has given us be fruitful. He says we can multiply, so we're just fruitful. No, multiplication time is over, so we're just fruitful. You understand me? But some of you can be fruitful and multiply still. Turn up the charm with love words or romantic song. When last, couples, be honest with me, when last both of you just sit in bed and listen to some nice music or watch a romantic movie or, you know, come on, the relationship is too dead for some people. It is too dead. Come on. Honey, don't touch me. You know, anyway, spice it up. God gave you that woman. God gave you that man.
You can tell that my relationship is not void of charm and romance.
I go to my bed and sleep, brethren. At 7 o'clock I start sleeping and I wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I am asleep. I don't sleep through the night. God be praised. As you practice romance, embrace your spouse with strokes and kisses and love. Make promises, like whisper in her ear some sexual statement, you know, listen.
Only in her ears, though.
Yeah. In her ears, your wife's ear, the husband ear.
And the wife can do the same.
I know I said the wife ear and the husband ear, you know, something like, wait until tonight. And she said, listen, can you accompany me to the mall? Yeah, man, I'll come here to the mall. And guess what? Guess what? Later on, we'll talk about the guess what. You know, the only reason why affair is happening is because we have taken the juice out of our marriage. We have taken the juice out of our marriage. Put back the juice. Let the juice flow. God gave you that thing to use it. God gave you, folks. Enjoy it. And the Christian, listen, I wrote an article, Message Magazine, which is a magazine for clergy that is published around the world. Last year, Message Magazine asked me to write an article for them. And the title of the article was Sex and the Clergy. Sex and the Clergy. And I didn't take a negative approach to talk about how many clergy have fallen to sexual this and no. I took a positive role. And I was challenging the pastors. And I'm saying, pastors, this Hollywood syndrome where people casting us as to be predators and we're always having a fear and do this thing, the time has come for us to stop it. God has made us spiritual leaders, and we're to show the world what sexual spirituality is. We're to demonstrate fidelity in marriage. We're to demonstrate wholesome relationship. And don't let Hollywood determine that they know how sex is to be performed. As godly Christian men, you must be the one to demonstrate. We are the light to the world. We are the salt to the world, not only in the word, but in our lifestyle. And so we must demonstrate to the world, show them what good marriages are, what good intimacy is. We're the ones who must carry that message because we are the light bearers. And the same thing I'm saying to you folks, we are Christian, we are God's children. We don't have to go to the heathen to tell us how to be sexual. We don't have to let Hollywood feel like they know how to be sexual, or they know what sex is, and they know how to enjoy sex, and they're having a time. And the Christians are only holy, holy, holy. Lord, we feel like we're dying. Come on, man, get up, get up. Get in that hole, gentlemen. I mean, sorry. Deal with your relationship in a positive way, in an enhancing way, and be happy about your life. Set aside a time for each other. Date each other again. Practice romance. That is very important. From honeymoon to lover moon. It is true that the honeymoon will not last forever, but the lover moon can. Therefore, practice lover moon and don't yearn after honeymoon. Bond together. Communicate effectively. Be honest with each other. Show affection. Practice romance. And above all, let Jesus Christ be the center of your marriage. Remember, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. God bless you. Thank you for listening. Yes, love can be confusing, but for the child of God, there's no confusion because God has declared us to be his children. And when we are God's children, then we understand his love. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. God be with you.
Any questions?
Amen.
Wow. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I tried to put a message onto the chat group to say if people have any messages, please drop them onto the chat, or if you feel it's something you want to remain anonymous about, you can just send it directly to myself so that I can convey the message to Dr. and Dr. Smith. Also, one of the questions that have been asked, and there's a response that is going on the chats as well, is the presentation going to be available? And there's an email that we've thrown on there that you can send your details to, and then it will be sent. Thank you so much for this presentation. And I've been tasked, Dr. and Dr. Smith, I've been tasked to do the question and answer section of this here. So far, there are only 2 questions. People seem to be, I think they're still trying to make sense of what they've heard so far. The first one, which I think you later on answered, was is touching sex? You may want to answer that again, but I'll quickly move on to the next one again, which says, should partners give up their individuality? In other words, their interests, hobbies, or anything that make them who they are, should they give that up for marriage? Those are the questions we have so far. Thank you.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
We can now, yes, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. We can hear you now.
Hearing now?
Yes.
Okay, I've heard the first question is touching sex, but I didn't hear the second.
Okay, the second question said, should partners give up, or spouses give up their individuality? And then there was a bracketed thing to say their interests, their hobbies, or things that make them the person that they are because of marriage. Should they give that up for marriage?
Unmute, June.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Yeah. So is touching sex? No. Sex is when you both copulate and there is penetration, but you can be sexual by touching. So when you touch each other, you are releasing, these hormones that make you feel stimulated, and you can have the ecstasy and the bonding and all that sex brings in a similar manner. So it is not replacing sex, but it is in addition to intimacy. So you shouldn't not have intimacy as a couple, but at the same time, you should not limit only the expression of your sexual feelings for each other with just penetrating each other. Does that help? All right. The next question is, should you give up your individuality because you're married? No, you shouldn't. In fact, one of the goals of being an adult is to become an individuated person. So as a parent, your responsibility is to train and educate your children to one day become individuated so they can leave you and go out on their own and develop their own lives and function get married, have their own children, and eventually break off from the parent stock. That's part of what we do as parents. You don't want your child to be constantly dependent on you and have the inability to sustain and maintain themselves. On the other hand, there will always be that connection. So as a couple, you come to your marriage with your own goals and aspirations. And once you get married, those should be put on the table. In fact, before you even get married, your spouse should know what you're about and that you have these interests. And then it now becomes a mutual goal. So each of you work to help the other person to achieve those goals. So you shouldn't have to give up who you are as a person or what you aspire to achieve in life because you're married. And if your spouse tries to diminish you or to discourage you from pursuing your dreams because, they don't want you to, and they think that this is going to, I don't know why they would think, you shouldn't. I mean, if it is something that is not going to affect your relationship with Christ or violate the Sabbath or some principle, then pursue your goals.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that has answered the individual who has put this question. Another anonymous question was, how would someone restore a normal relationship, or how would a couple restore a normal relationship after a long-term sickness? And they went on to specify a mental illness that left a lot of side effects, I think, due to the medications and so on. Someone becomes maybe mentally absent or detached and affected their communication. How do they bounce back from that? How do they recover from it?
Right. So if there's a reason, if there's a medical reason or other that disallow the individual from bonding effectively and maintaining a steady, consistent relationship. As we said in marriage commitment or in the vows, for better or for worse. So people don't bring illness on themselves. I mean, some people do things, make poor judgment that may induce some problems. But if you're sick and this is a function of your illness and it created a distance in your relationship, then you have a responsibility to work along with that person. And they may not be as spontaneous and they may not even be as capable. There may have been disabilities that you're going to have to live with, but that's a part of the package. So you care for the person and you try to treat them as well as you can, and until death do us part. So you can't just abandon your spouse because they had some issue that made them unable to be effective. I had a girlfriend that for over 20 odd years, she met a serious accident. They were both happily married, moved from New York to Atlanta, and they were, bought a beautiful home and they were living their lives. And one day she met an accident and she got injured on her left side. They had to literally cut her out of the car. They thought she had actually died, but she was disabled physically. She couldn't move the left side. And for 22 years, she was in that state. And let me tell you, I often say, when you look in the dictionary for the definition of true love, you should see Carter and Rudy Francis, because it was so admirable to watch the attention and the patience and the love that that husband demonstrated for his wife. I mean, he took the best care of her, and she was in her state. She lived a happy life. God, it was unfortunate. We lost her just about 2 weeks ago. She had some other problems and she passed eventually. But it was so admirable the way he took care of her. So sometimes that happens in life. You have injuries that will interfere with your expectations and your anticipations. But regardless of who it happens to, whether it's the husband or the wife, your responsibility to stand by each other and take care of them and be loyal to them as if nothing ever happened. It is going to be a strain and you will need help. You might even have to go to therapy to get insight on what to do, but you can't abandon your spouse because they had a mental problem or they had some other issue.
Thank you. There's another anonymous one here, which says, is foreplay a must during intercourse? And do you want me to ask them in pairs these questions, or do you want them?
You're asking, is foreplay a must during intercourse? I wouldn't say it's a must, because sometimes you have what we call quickies. There's no time for foreplay. You just you're in the moment and both it's conducive and you go for it, and that's okay. But it should not be the norm. So in other words, foreplay sometimes is necessary, especially for the woman, because her body takes a lot longer to warm up and get ready. Most times the husband is already thinking about it, and by the time he makes the move, his body is ready. But the woman may not have had it on her mind, and so when you initiate it, she might need time. So foreplay is designed to bring her to the same point, so both of you can be in synchrony. So if you touch her and she's not ready, then you are ready to go and she's still trying to get there. And it's no fun when that happens. So that's why you need foreplay. But if both of you are ready and you're able to, then enjoy it.
Another decision,
What is it?
You're not here for, man.
With who?
None of you.
Okay, if others could mute themselves. There's a question here that says, how can a couple with older children manage a public display of affection without confusing their growing children? As we know, children learn from our examples.
How can couples public display of affection without confusing their children?
Yes.
I would say that anything you do ought to be appropriate. So it would be inappropriate for you to display intimacy in a way that would embarrass your children, whether, whatever age they are. So you need to be discreet. There's some things you don't need to do in public. But at the same time, if you were holding hands and being affectionate to your wife in public or your husband in public, it is also modeling for your child what is an acceptable behavior. So you have to learn, you have to establish the limits, and you don't want to be overt in your public display because it might be inappropriate and indecent. But at the same time, for example, if you're at the beach, the things that you might do in a bathing suit would not be the things that you would do in the church social, so you have to choose the places where you lift your spouse up, or where you do whatever, and you do it appropriately. But yes, whatever you do ought to be acceptable to both of you and also be appropriate in front of your kids.
Thank you. There is a question here. It seems, I think sex maybe is the one that brings a lot of confusion, I'm guessing, because that's where most questions are leaning. As Christians, are there sexual styles that we should not practice, or we can enjoy them since we are married? I'm guessing they're saying enjoy everything without any limitations. I'm guessing that's what the question is trying to drive at. So is there any line that is drawn when it comes to sex or lovemaking?
I believe that as Christians, we have a responsibility to be Christ-like in everything that we do. So I think any behavior that we're exhibiting, whether it is in the bedroom or it is in public, we should have a understanding of, would God approve of this? Do I have to hide my face from Jesus if he had to enter my bedroom at this point? And if you can, in fair conscience, say that what you're doing is acceptable to Christ, then I would say, go ahead. But if you have any doubt that this is not something that Jesus would approve of, then I would say you probably need to pause and ask yourself, why are you doing this? On the other hand, I know that there are some sexual acts that can be quite pervertish. Unfortunately, we live in a society that have, I would say, almost no moral standards. And so sometimes Christians get confused on what is acceptable and what is not. And, sex is designed to be a beautiful act in a committed relationship between a husband and a wife. And there are some behaviors that are just immoral. There are some behaviors that are just perverted. And so a Christian ought to be able to put a check and to say, no, I will not allow my body to be used in that regard, or I will not allow myself to go to that level. I don't have to go to that level in order to experience the essence of true ecstasy in a marriage, especially in a Christian marriage. So you have to know as an adult that there are some limits, much like any other choice you make in life. There are some things you can't drink, even though it might make others excited. There are some places you don't go because, there's a limit for Christians. So it is, there are some acts for Christians we just don't do because it's just not what Christ designed your body to do.
Here's another question here. It says, what should a person do if they discover that they have character traits that upset the other person, but it's central to who they are? For example, if someone is a go-getter in business, but it means a lot of time is given to work and away from family time.
Good question. If a person is considered a go-getter or label themselves a go-getter, and this is not something that is valued by your spouse, then I think one of your first responsibilities is to help your spouse move towards the direction where you are. In other words, you shouldn't be going to get what you're trying to get if it is not something that is valued by your family, because you need the support of your spouse in whatever you're doing. So maybe you need to say, well, honey, I am really interested in pursuing this project or this goal. It's going to cost XYZ and it will mean XYZ. If your spouse is not online with you and feels like your go-getting is a risk-taking venture, and they're not prepared to mortgage the house to make that risk or to use all your savings to pursue that goal, then you shouldn't, because it needs to be a mutual decision. Because I also know that some people label themselves go-getters, but they're really just risk takers. So every risk that comes up, every scam that comes up, they want to try it because they think, it's like they have an addictive personality and they think that there might be a possibility I can make some money, but the other person is saying, no, that's not a feasible venture, don't go into it. And my wife is not a go-getter, But it's not that she's not a go-getter or my husband is not a go-getter. It's just that they're not risk takers. They would rather keep the little they have than go after millions and lose everything they have. So you also have to get to the point where you decide, is it that they're not a go-getter or is it that you're a risk taker?
Oh, thank you. The next question says, how do you deal with a partner who is addicted to flirting and adultery, but will never admit how much one tries to no matter how much one tries to discuss it? And there's a side note to say this is an old couple with responsibilities in the church.
Thanks for your question. Denial is always a dangerous thing to the destruction of a relationship or the destruction of one's personal spiritual life. Sometimes one thinks flirting and being flirtatious is a bond of honor or a badge of honor, but it sometimes lead you in the wrong direction and cause you to make bad decisions. So the question is, how can one deal with? As long as the person is in denial, it becomes difficult to deal with, because if you say the person should get some counseling, they say, I don't need counseling, because they're in denial. So it's hard for us to tell you how to deal with it, except to say, if the person is hearing, to tell that person, you know something, you need help. You need help beyond yourself. This flirtatious attitude that you have will eventually catch up with you. Maybe 10 years have passed, maybe 15, maybe 20 years have passed, and you're practicing it, but hey, behold, your sin shall find you out. If they're not confessed, if you're not repent of them, if you don't take away bad habits, stop practicing bad habits, eventually it catches up with you. And the worst thing is, it catches up at a time when you least expect it and you least want it. How to deal with it? I think, honey, they should try to have an honest, frank talk with the individual and let them know, even if you think it's okay, it's not okay for the relationship.
Right. So, and I think that's the issue. You might in your heart feel like I'm just being friendly. I really have no interest in these people that I'm flirting with. But your spouse is saying to you, it makes them uncomfortable. They feel insecure, because sometimes that's how it starts, into a little flirtatious thing. And the other person that you're flirting with takes it seriously, more seriously than you intended. And before you know it, you're dragged into more than you bargained for. So don't start the slippery road, because once you start sliding, it only takes you to the bottom. So if it is going to affect the marriage and the family, stay away from it.
And what can happen too, in these flirtatious moments, you do acts of kindness for the flirtatious acts of kindness for the individual. For you, you're just flirting, but the individuals see these as symbolic and important. And what they do is they keep them, they preserve them, tape them, whatever they do. And later on now, they use it to blackmail you. So you have to be very careful.
I just had a case recently where a gentleman was one of the leaders in his church, and he was such a good Christian person to the eyes of everyone else, and to his wife as well. And because of that, she had no idea that this was happening. One day she was on her way to work, and just as she reversed from her driveway, a car backed up in front of her gate, and she wondered, why is this person stopping in my path? And so she got out of the car and said, how may I help you? And it was a woman who came to confront her and to tell her that she was having a 2-year relationship with her husband. The poor woman almost had a heart attack. She said, with my husband? It was something she said she could never imagine. And it turned out that yes, they were having an active affair, sexual affair, and she never caught on. But the good thing was he was, of course, he had no choice, because she went in immediately for him in the house and brought him out, and he almost had a heart attack when he saw the woman, and he had to confess and admit. And then they came into counseling as a result. So sometimes you really can't tell, because the person is such a good Christian or pretend to be such a good Christian, and these things happen. So
the individual may say, well, I am not sexually active. The point Honey is making in telling that story is, at one point, this individual felt that this woman would keep his secret to the grave. And eventually she did not. So what we are saying is, that sometimes when you do acts of flirtatious kindness to individuals, they can take it and blackmail you. So even though you didn't go thus far, they can show, I got this, you said this, you did that, and use it to blackmail you. So be wise as serpent, harmless as dove.
Don't go there.
Thank you. There's another question here. The question was, you know how you told us about the honeymoon phase and then things are all nice and rosy and it's kind of an exaggerated phase. So is there a way of mitigating that by not being too intense in that honeymoon period so that the fall is not too great?
No. The honeymoon must be the honeymoon. It must live up to its name. It must be honeymoon. But the honeymoon has to move into mature love. You have to understand that now. Whereas before, we could spend so much time, but now we have a child to care for. Now we have to stay up helping the child with homework. So I can't get to bed as quickly as I would have wanted to. There's so many variables that changes. So all it is calling for is one, a mature understanding, two, adaptation, and three, making the adjustments.
Thank you. There's a follow-on question. Dr. Smith said that we have to be Christ-like when the question was asked about sexual acts and styles and things like that and positions, I'm guessing. And there was a follow-on question that says, how can we be Christ-like in the bedroom when Jesus was not married?
Well, there's no correlation between the bedroom and Jesus not being married. When it says be Christ-like, we're not talking about God and sexuality. We're talking about God is the originator of sexuality. So when you're Christ-like with a man who originated the thing. And he originated it to be holy, to be satisfying, to be relational. So it's not that he's not married, it's that he was the one that created you with your sex drive, your sex organs, your everything. So he understands it. He's above marriage. He's way above marriage. Galaxy Note 8, mute yourself, Galaxy Note 8, mute yourself. Yes, so Christ is above that. But the point is that in your bedroom, while it's your secret chamber and your private chamber, you're still a child of God. And so there are some things that you should not do. There's a dark side out there with certain perversion and sex toys that are deep and dark, and God's children should stay away from those. That's what we're saying.
Thank you. What do you do when your spouse seems to care more about his parents and siblings more than his own wife and children? So I'm guessing it's the husband here. So more than his wife and kids. So he seems to be more caring or more inclined towards his family and siblings.
Well, that is an age-old problem, and that has destroyed so many marriages. People do not understand marriage boundaries or take marriage boundaries seriously. We're to care for our parents. We're to love our parents. When we got married, I had both my mother and father, and Honey had both her mother and father. And the good thing for us is that there's a mutual relationship with her parents and me and my parents and her. And we both have been taking care of our parents as best as we should, but we don't allow it to affect our relationship. And that's where a lot of people have not been able to cut loose. So shall a man leave his father and his mother and cleave to his wife. It's biblical. It's a biblical mandate. It's not a cultural thing. It's not a cultural thing. It's not a relational thing. It's a biblical thing. Leave mother and father and cleave. So we have to say to such a man, understand the vow that you have taken. And that vow becomes sacred and stronger than you and your mother or you and your father. Yes, you should care for them. Yes, your wife should respect them. Yes, you should be a good relationship. But your strongest bond and your strongest relationship
Obligation.
and your strongest obligation between yourself and your wife. Not yourself and your parents, yourself and your wife. And that's according to God's.
Thank you. Another question which has been sent anonymously is it possible to suppress sexual desire, especially where one partner has become disabled or has sickness that does not allow for sexual intercourse?
Yes, it is possible, honey. It is possible to suppress sexual desire, just like how people who are single and are Christians have to suppress sexual desire. So yes, sexual desire can be suppressed. And in certain given conditions and situations like the one that you have described, yes. Now, if the spouse that, whether through medical condition or whatever, is unable to physically have sex and can stimulate you, and because sex is a sexual desire, and you have to have that emotional feeling to want to be sexual. But if the person is able to be sexual and can stimulate you, then so it should be. But if it's not happening, then yes, one has to suppress one's self.
Okay. There are two questions here which both relate to the same topic of pornography. So one says, if I do not get enough sex from my spouse, can I use pornography to fulfill my needs? Which I think is partly answered by what you have mentioned, albeit for a different question. And the other says, why is pornography not good in marriage?
Because pornography will take you down the dark side of sinful sexuality. You can never be satisfied. All of the individuals that I have counseled who had pornography as a problem related to me how it started with just a free site, going on a free website. And then that wasn't good enough after a time. And so they started to pay one that didn't cost much. And then that didn't good enough. They had to, you keep getting deeper and deeper. I remember in one occasion, I asked the individual to bring in all that they had for me, the DVDs, the this, the that. And they brought in a big garbage bag. And when I say big, a big garbage bag full of all this stuff that they brought in. So why should it's gonna kill your marriage? Because under no condition your wife will be able to perform like these individuals. Remember, what you're seeing on in these videos and movies and what have you is not real. A man is not performing that long. It's a lie. What they do is they stitch the movie so that they stitch the act, the sexual act, so that you see a man performing for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe even half an hour. It took him 6 weeks to do that film, or 3 weeks, or whatever time. They just cut and paste and make it into one smooth act. Not only that, pornography eats away at your moral values. It eats away. And once you're not getting enough from your spouse, you're going to seek it, one, virtually, and then secondly, it becomes physically. It's just a matter of time. I have not met one individual who has said to me, I dabbled in pornography and I came out good. They were all damaged emotionally, damaged psychologically, damaged sexually. And even if it leads into a divorce, as some cases have, it led into a divorce of the relationship. When they form a new relationship, the problem continued, and that relationship is in trouble also.
In addition to that, honey, sometimes when there are problems in the marriage, the one spouse might turn to pornography to get satisfaction, thinking it's a temporary thing.
Mm-hmm.
But once they begin to do that, it's designed for that. This pornographic industry have psychology behind it. much like drugs and alcohol gets to the brain. It gets into your psychic, and it is designed to keep you addicted. So it's like chocolate. You never just bite one little piece and say, oh, I'm satisfied. You're going to eat the whole bar. That's what happens.
Most of it.
Or most of it. So once you start down that slope, the devil takes you right where he wants you, and you just can't get back. And if you do, your wife will never, or husband, because it happens with women as well, but your spouse will never be able to satisfy you again, because the desire that you have is now mental, and you can't appreciate the ecstasy of the relationship you have.
Why do you think, folks, why do you think the pornography industry is more lucrative than football, baseball, and basketball? Football, baseball, and basketball. When all three are combined, the revenues from those three big industries is less than the revenue that pornography alone gets. Why do you think, folks, the revenue from Chrysler, Chevrolet, and Ford industries, those three big giant motor industries, why do you think the revenue from pornography is greater than the revenue of all three motor industries combined? Why? It is because once individuals are hooked in it, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. They're never satisfied.
Yeah, thank you. There's a question here. I think this is now on the topic of romance. What if your partner is not, I'm sure, receptive to romantic gestures? Or they said, the actual question is, what if your partner is not encouraging romance, as in if you try, they are cold towards it? So I'm guessing they are just not receptive to romantic gestures.
That's a good question. Romance occurs between two people. One hand cannot clap. It takes two hands to clap. The same thing with romance. For you to have a romantic relationship, both individuals have to be in it. And there are some individuals who naturally are romantic individuals. There are others, based on their socialization, based on their culture, based on childhood wounds or whatever it is, they are not romantic. And that is why we have marriage workshops like these. Peterson and his team has been planning this thing. I have been to so many of his workshops. That's why we do these things, because we want to help individuals. It's not that all marriages are falling apart. There are many marriages that are doing well socially, financially, spiritually, and otherwise. But one point they have stumbled on is the sexual emotional part. And because some spouse don't see themselves as romantic being. And what we are saying is, God created you not as a static being, but as a dynamic being. And so you can change. And the purpose of having workshops like these is to help individuals to change, is to help individuals to grow. I have always confessed that when I marry Honey and we start the first 5 years of my marriage, I thought I was having the best of relationship. And it wasn't until I was at we were at Andrews University studying, and I went to a couples retreat that I didn't want to go.
Perfect temperature.
I protested, but eventually I went. I didn't think it could do any good for me. And the one couples retreat I went to changed my whole persona, helped me to understand what romance is, what a man can do for his wife. As a matter of fact, that one visit is why I'm a family therapist today, because I was so changed, I was so transformed that I decided if one weekend could change a pig-head, stubborn person like me, then what could I now do for others. And that's when I went into the field. So yes, the purpose of these workshops is to help us to grow, is to help us to learn more, is to help us to understand, is to help us to do. And yes, we may not be romantically inclined, but we can. So in short, for the question, what do you do? Help to educate the individual through these workshops. And we pray by God's grace, somehow the individual will catch on.
Can I add to that, honey, that sometimes it is also possible that the person that is not responding may have issues that is emotionally and psychologically weighing on them. So if they don't feel secure in the relationship, or they feel that you're not loyal to them, then when you approach them, they just don't want to respond. And so you may need to go get help to work through whatever. And sometimes the issue is not even with you, the spouse. It may be unfinished business with other relationships that you trigger in them, etc. So they project that onto you. So there could be all kinds of emotional and psychological reasons why a person just doesn't seem to be intrigued. It could also be, as honey alluded to, childhood wounds. Some children who were sexually abused, when they're touched sexually as an adult, it could trigger the experience they had in their childhood abuse, and that could shut them down emotionally. So there are lots of things that could cause that.
However, don't go ask your wife now or your husband, were you sexually abused? Why you're not?
Or don't assume she was either.
Don't be your clinician. Don't be your own clinician. Work through whatever it is and get the necessary help needs be. And now, one of the good things with professional help now is that just about all counselors are now Zoom. They don't have walk-in counseling anymore. It's because of COVID. So you can get counselors from Australia, from New Zealand, from England, from Jamaica, from America, from anywhere now. So to say we don't have the resource, you can't make that excuse anymore, because you can get professional counseling anywhere, because Zoom counseling is what everyone is doing now.
Of course, there is a caution that if you're licensed, sometimes that can be a problem, because telehealth restricts you from operating outside of your zone. So if you're going to pay by insurance, then you have to be careful.
That is if you're using insurance. But it's up to the counselor, the professional counselor will know what their jurisdiction or boundary is. You don't have to worry about that. You just need to get the help.
I am aware of the time. There are still about 10 questions, but I think we will have to stop it.
We have to cut off. We have to cut off.
Yeah, so that's where I was going, that I think in interest of time, we still have quite a lot of questions there. I don't know if they can be emailed to yourselves at some point. Would you be happy to reply to these, or can we give them to Elder Peterson to anonymously send for a kind response from yourselves? I'm not too sure how to do it. They are very good questions, but there's quite a lot of them, and we would not be able to go through all of them today. So I will hand over to Pastor Njagi, is it, or is it Elder Sentenga? I can't remember who's taking over from me, but I think the questions will have to stop at this point.
Juliet.
Okay. So thank you so much, Dr. Alonzo. Thank you so much. I think we have our brother Lorenzo, who is supposed to give the vote of thanks. And just to let you know, we do have upcoming, I think one of the questions that was there is, do we have any more sessions this year? This year, no, but next year, January, February, March, we have plans. So January, we're dealing with financial management. So I know most of you have spent a lot of money for Christmas and school fees in January. So please come and listen in we've got a speaker who will talk around financial management, because it's also important in families. In February, we have a really nice presentation around intimacy again, in line that it's the Valentine month, month of love. And then in March, we are working on a conflict resolution, conflict management presentation. So please join us. But I'll hand over to Lorenzo. And after that, I think Pastor Sam Davis will do something about anniversaries and we wind
Kwari kure tuzabyansa gute?
kwese ko dusigaye turi twenyine bane bangane babigiye gitoya hamwe muri bakanze gitoya.
Lorenzo, we can't hear you.
Lorenzo. If not, we could just go to Pastor Sam Davis, who was just going to say something about appreciating couples who've had anniversaries recently. And then Dr. Njagi will end with a word of prayer.
If Lorenzo is not there, I can step in.
Okay.
Then Michael is going to do the prayer for the couples after that. Pastor Sam Davis now requested. So may I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Smith, Drs. June and Alonzo Smith, are very great friends of ours. Has been mentioned. They have, I think, this could go on for hours. Yeah. But however, we have to limit that. We want to thank them so much because Dr. Alonzo Smith, as I sent you out, I think his testimony sometime last month, he was COVID. He went down badly for 18 days out of COVID, and to see him speak there is a miracle. It's a miracle from God. We wouldn't have him, but then that's it. We thank God for his presence. If you haven't heard that testimony, I do have. He's actually published a book out of that, and we are very, very grateful because even when we approached him and said, would you be able to do a presentation for us? Would you be able to have a seminar for us? Well, they are quite determined man, but he says, I will. And I said, wow, I didn't expect that because of the way he had been down that time of the year when COVID put him down. However, as they say, behind a successful man, June, I tell you what, I don't know what to say because she is a woman of prayer. She's a prayer warrior. Throughout the time when when he was down sick in hospital, we used to call her every day, and she could pick a phone on a daily basis. And never seen anybody like this, but very, 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 very supportive, very good. So your presentation this evening is much appreciated. I think Juliet will testify. I think we had 200 and something. What do we have, Martin? At one point?
263.
263 couples, and some people, 2-3 couples come together. And so we are talking about something like 600 individuals. And even more, we expected to have a problem of flood because so many people, because when they heard about you people, we had a lot of your friends. I don't know whether you managed to, Dr. Alonzo Smith, or managed to see news in Rwanda and many others. So we are very, very grateful. It's been a privilege. We are very happy. MEF is happy. And if you don't mind, we shall come back again sometime in the new year to request you or a topic like that. When the topic came up and people are saying, love confusing, what's that? But now we have really seen how confusing it can be. Juliet, is your question answered?
Thank you.
Yes, it's been a question answered. Okay, so I think we are very grateful now.
Can I say a word?
Yes, please, sir.
Yes, I also would like to thank you and your dear wife, and would like to thank all of you folks for praying for me, because I know your prayers, I can tell you, it was the wing beneath my wing. I went through a hard time. It was a near-death experience. You know, it's not a nice thing when the doctor comes and literally is telling you that there's nothing more they can do for you. I have chronicled my account in this beautiful book, from the jawbones of COVID. And some folks in England, in London, have already ordered it. They send and tell me, because it's on Amazon and you can get it. They have Amazon UK.
Okay.
And if you have Kindle in the new year, as the new year starts, it will be on Kindle as well. But this is the beautiful book, From the Jawbones of COVID-19, My Near-Death Experience with the Coronavirus. I'm telling you, my friends, it's a beautiful book to read. I have a whole list of commendations that I have gotten. My president of my conference, he ordered a copy. He ordered almost 200 copies. When he read it, he said, I took 2 days to read the book, and I want everyone in this conference to get a copy, every worker, that is, to get a copy. But I wouldn't be able to write the book if you were not praying for me, and God answered that prayer. So I just want to thank you for all your prayers.
Please put that magazine on again. Please show the magazine.
Rita, how are you doing?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
I am doing good.
Thank God for you. We really thank God for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I'm going to look it up.
And Gerald, say hi to Gerald for us.
And Irene.
They're all fun, and Irene and everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
God for you.
From the jawbones of COVID-19. Yes, Amazon UK, you'll be able to get it.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I want to take this opportunity. Thank you once again, Alonzo and June.
Nancy, hi Nancy.
Hello. Nice to see you again.
We are truly grateful to God that we are able to bless us once again. And we were looking forward to this session. And we are just thanking God for what he continues to use you to do, not only to our lives, but also to the couples on this forum and other places. I want to take this opportunity before we finish to acknowledge those who have celebrated their anniversaries. We haven't asked, but I know quite a number of you have had your anniversaries since we were last together. I don't know, how did you want us to do it, Juliet? Do you want them to recognize, identify who they are, or do you just want me to do a general prayer?
What I've written down, they sent me some names.
Okay, can you identify them for us?
Mostly for December, but in general, you'll have to pray for everyone, really, their anniversaries.
Yes.
But the names I have here are quite a lot. I have Dr. James and Nkurunziza and his wife, myself and my wife is tomorrow, and Nkuruleko and the Fortunate, Elizabeth and Edward Gasana, Augustine and Vaughan, Fatih and Josine, Matthias and his wife, Simon and Melindichu, Juanita and Ronald, Isaac and Rachel Ngusi, Eunice and David Onchagua from Qatar, 36 years now, wow. Lily and Brighton, Rona and Job Myrola, Shingiro Paul and Matlida. Those are the ones I have. I managed to write, but could be more. So you just need to dedicate the couples a dedication prayer, including these ones that are requested. Thank you very much.
Let us pray together. Our Father in heaven, we are truly grateful that we can come to acknowledge your goodness in our lives, in our marriages, and especially for those couples who this month of December and even last month are celebrating their anniversaries. You have watched over them. You have brought them through another year. And we thank you for being there for them, for guiding, for providing, for protecting. We pray, Lord, as they reflect back at this time together, that from that reflection, they will give thanks and they will also learn how to go forward and how to grow their relationships. We are grateful that they make time to be in this forum and other forums. This is an indication of a desire that they want to have their relationship the best it can be. So we ask your blessing upon their relation, their love for you, their love for one another. Help them to grow in their relationship with you and with Christ. And as they grow in that relationship and as they take more and more of the life of Christ, they will go in their relationship with one another. So we thank you for their lives. We thank you for their love. We thank you for their friendship. We thank you, Lord, for their communication and all the dimensions of their relationship. And we pray going forward, as you bless them, help them to go out and bless other couples, that they may also be an inspiration to other couples. We thank you for hearing our prayer. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Once again, I want to request
Amen.
those of you who would like a recording of this session, please write an email to martinngugi@gmail.com. I know some of you have sent your emails on the chat. We are not able to take those and send it to you. We would like you to send an email. On the chat, you will see the email for Martin. If you can send your email to Martin, then we will be able to send a copy of the recording to you. Once again, we thank you. We praise God for you. We look forward. Peterson, when is our next session?
23rd of January.
So our next session is the 23rd of January, the same time. The connection is the same. It doesn't change. So please go forward and invite others and plan to be with us. God bless.
Okay, that if we can unmute ourselves and show our photos to everybody so they can say hi to everyone, at least for 5 minutes before we move away. That would be good. Just get to know one another.